going to continue creating dark, medium, and light. So the darkest value that you create with your pencil means that you're putting a lot of pressure down and you're filling in that box. You always want to look at the shape that you're working with as well. It is easier for me to go the lengthways where it's longer than it is to shade short and go across. So kind of keep that in mind as we're working as well. Always look at your shape and kind of determine where you're going to have the most room to work back and forth. So the first one's going to be the darkest value that your colored pencil will make. We know that we can layer colors if we need to darken something, but right now I'm just focused on this one. So shading in, good craftsmanship, side to side, go slow, and get a really dark value built up. This just means that I'm filling in a lot of the texture, going really slow around the edges. And if I needed to make a really dark shadow in my drawing or a painting, I would create that dark value. Alright, the next one that we would see that we would be transitioning to get a dark to light is a medium value. So that means that this is a step down. This should not be as dark. I'm not going to press down on my pencil as hard, and if you are someone that's really heavy-handed, like that's hard for you to do, back up on your pencil a little bit more. That means that you can't press down as hard. It gives you also a little bit more range of motion. And so sometimes that helps if you have a hard time shading lightly. Move back. Colored pencils are made to work in layers. So we want to put down a layer at a time. So again, I'm not pressing down as hard. I'm going through and shading and filling it in. I can always go over it multiple times to make it darker, a step by step. Right. And then your last one is going to be that light value. So when we fade a color from dark to light, the last one we want a lot of the paper showing through, and it's really just moving the pencil back and forth across the paper. Again, I've moved my hand back farther so that I'm not pressing down, and every paper has a texture to it. So depending on how much texture it has, it'll grab onto that colored pencil automatically. So I'm just really moving it back and forth, building up colored pencil so I get a really light value. Alright, after we've got dark, medium, and light, we're going to put that into practice down here, where we're going to practice transitioning from dark to medium to light so that there isn't a space or a line in between them. So there's a couple of things that we want to talk about kind of moving forward. Everyone is different. The way that you write, like your handwriting, the way you put down lines is different as well. So you have to find what works best for you. As we're shading, some people do continuous shading, meaning that they move their pencil continuously left to right and they get dark, medium, and they go light. All right? That may not be best for you. That may be really difficult for you. So sometimes it's better if we change up the mark making. I have sometimes students, and I myself work in circles, meaning that I take my pencil and make little ovals and I shade that way over and over, and that provides you an opportunity. It gives you a loop so that you can come back in and kind of fill that in And I shade that way a lot of times when I'm trying to blend something. So you have to find what works best for you. We're not going to start off with dark shading, although we're going to build up to it. We're going to start kind of medium and then work our way across. So again, kind of try out both. You may try continuous shading or you may try some circles, and that works too. I'm just going to go slow and work my way across, filling it in with medium. Now, as I start moving across the bar, I'm going to let up on the amount of pressure. I'm not going to make as many lines. I'm going to space them out. And that lets that paper show through too, so that I start to get that dark to light. And I'm slowly going to build this up until I get a darker value. Working my way across. It's all about like focusing on that. It's about pressure on the pencil and learning what makes that medium and light for you. So at the very end over here under light, this should be just my pencil moving across the page, and I just see a few lines. So I've got a good medium fading into light. I'm going to start building this up more. So I'm going to start pressing down harder, filling in and making more lines in an area, and working my way across. So as you're working, sometimes you just get an uneven kind of shading technique, right? So I'm going to make a couple mistakes here and we'll learn how to fix them. So one is students are shading and all of a sudden it's really dark, okay? One, I shouldn't see that line that's there. I need to fix that. So one thing that I can do is on the other side of this, right here, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to shade. And I'm going to shade it until I match that same value and fade it out. So matching that value, building it up, and then going dark to light. And I'll be able to get rid of that line because I want to break it up. The other thing is now I've got back here, well, this is supposed to be darker, so that just means I'm just going to build that up, matching that shade. If you fly out of a line, all right, keep in mind that Crayola pencils are pretty erasable. It may kind of stain the paper in some areas and build up, so you can go in and like fix up little lines and such. And again, this takes some practice. So this may take you a little while to kind of build up. Alright, once we've got a pretty good transition, being able to shade dark to light is good, but you're going to be applying it to shapes. So you're going to have images that are in your project where you're going to have to do some shading dark to light. So we've got a couple of images to practice with down here. We're going to look at the direction of them. So I don't have something that's straight lines. I have something that's curved. If I want this to feel like a bubbly kind of speech bubble or a cloud, I need it to have some roundness and some shape to it. So one of those is the shading of it, right? So if I'm shading this and it has a curved line, then I'm going to shade it following the curve of the shape and bringing those lines in. If you're a continuous shader, then you'll continue that kind of moving across. If you're someone that uses circles, then you can still do the same thing. You're just following the curve. My goal is to make it a little darker around the edges and then fade it towards the center so that I have that lighter value. This is kind of a step up in difficulty though, because now I've got to rotate my paper, start here and blend this one in so that I don't get a bunch of lines. So again, starting kind of medium, bringing it across. Where these two overlap, I have to lighten it up. I may even have to do some circles to kind of blend the two. And I'm just going to continue rotating my paper, working around. I'm right-handed, So I'm working kind of left to right. If you're the opposite, you may try working the right to left. Find what works for you. Alright, one thing that you want to avoid is like flat shading, meaning that I start here and it's dark and then I just kind of like fade it across. If you do that, it flattens something out. If you're wanting it to feel rounded, you have to kind of follow the curve of the shape and look at where your darks and lights are. And again, I'm doing this pretty quick because I'm just demonstrating to you, but take your time and know that this doesn't happen right away for everybody. This takes some practice. So that's why we're doing it.
Do you have any polymer erasers?
There are some regular erasers over on the wall. Alright, same thing is going to go for our star when you get to it. We're going to go with shading from one direction to the next. So darker along an edge and fading it towards the center. This time again, your blending spot towards the middle is going to be where there's a lot of overlap. You also want to make sure that you don't have eraser marks under your paper when you're shading, because that shows up in there. Okay? Yes. Alright, so I'm going to make my way around after I get an example done. And we'll go through. If you're having some trouble with transitioning your values from dark to light, then I'll kind of help you with that. If you're finished with this, keep in mind that we need to get Vincent van Gogh done. So if you don't have that finished after your shapes are done, go ahead and continue working on that. Again, I'm going to pick those up on Friday and give those a grade.